Dude, if you still don't know how to work out the number of calories you should be consuming to lose weight, drop body fat, maintain your weight, or even build muscle, well, in this training, I'm going to run through exactly the step-by-step process of how you can determine the number of calories you should be consuming to achieve your desired outcome. And that starts with calorie tracking. So we need to understand how to actually track our calories effectively. And step number 1 suggests that we need to calculate your individual needs, because you are very much your own individual. You are nowhere near the same as the person next to you. You may run a marathon or climb Mount Everest every single day, or you might be someone that's sedentary. You sit in the office all day, every single day, therefore you have low levels of energy expenditure. You are burning very little calories. So what we need to do is actually head to your internet browser and type in TDEE calculator, and that stands for total daily energy expenditure. And it's going to ask you a couple of questions regarding your anthropometric data, which includes your age, your gender, your weight, your height, and your activity level. And once it has all of that information, it will input it into an equation also known as the Mifflin-St. Jeor equation. And it will tell you exactly the number of calories that you should be consuming, whether you're looking to drop body fat, lose weight, maintain your weight, or even build muscle from the data that you have given it. Now, step number 2, once you've calculated your calorie needs, you then need to pick a tracking method. So you can use a calorie tracking app such as MyFitnessPal or even Chronometer, or if you're old-fashioned, much like myself, you can use a food diary, whichever one you are going to stick to long term. Now, MyFitnessPal and Chronometer are fantastic because they already have the anthropometric questions inbuilt into the app and the Mifflin-St. Jeor equation. So when you're onboarded to that app, it will ask you all of those questions, and then it will determine the number of calories you should be consuming based on the goal that you want to achieve. Now, step number 3, we need to log everything. So for the next 7 to 14 days, I want you to track all of the food and drink that you consume. And yes, the weekends do count from Monday to Friday if you've been strict, and then the weekends you go to your favorite restaurant, you go to your favorite cafe, that still counts. So you need to track all of the food and drink that you are consuming, and that does also include portion sizes, sauces, and cooking oils. And step number 4, we actually need to compare that target with your TDEE target. So let's say, for example, for the last 2 weeks, you have been consuming roughly 2,000 calories via MyFitnessPal. And let's say you're looking to drop roughly 1 pound of body fat. And on MyFitnessPal or your TDEE calculator, it's told you that you need to consume roughly 1,800 calories. Well, we now know that you are in a calorie surplus, or perhaps you are in a maintenance. Therefore, you need to drop your calories to match the TDEE calculator, whether you used it via MyFitnessPal or you headed to your internet web browser. But essentially what we want to do is match your intake to your goal, whether that's a deficit for fat loss or a surplus for muscle gain. And then finally, step number 5, you gotta be consistent, man. We gotta adjust on a weekly basis when you do review your progress. So that does include your scale weight. It does include taking photos of your physique front, back, and side, and then just adjust when needed. But you don't need to make drastic changes. When we talk about adjustments, I would actually say around 100 to 150 calories can be manipulated on a weekly basis. So as an example, let's say I was consuming the reference nutrient intake for the average adult, which is 2,000 calories per day, and I wasn't seeing a change in my scale weight because, hey, calorie apps, they may not necessarily get it right every single time. Well, after 7 to 14 days, I could drop my calories by 100 to 150 and then monitor the data that way. You don't need to do endless hours of cardio. You don't need to remove all the food and drink that you enjoy. You just need to be consistent and adherent for a long period of time, not just a couple of weeks. So we're now going to come on to some of the issues that I see when tracking calories. And the first one is actually dietary variation, because that's going to reduce your calorie tracking accuracy. So if for the average adult you consume breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but you are changing that on a daily basis, the type of food that you're consuming, or even the portion sizes, well, guess what? That's going to reduce your calorie tracking accuracy. Your meals that you do design, they don't need to be bland, okay? They don't need to be boring. You don't need to eat the same meal 5 times a day. The amount of guys that I'm seeing on social media eat chicken and rice every single day for the best part of 3 to 5 meals. It's ridiculous. Instead, you just need an A and a B option, perhaps a training day or even a rest day meal plan, and just foods that you enjoy. Number 2, user uploaded app data often contains errors. So even though I do recommend MyFitnessPal or Chronometer, they often do contain errors because at the end of the day, we are humans, we are putting that data into a data log, and sometimes we do get it wrong. So you should always cross-reference the nutritional value table, which you can see on the back of any product that you consume, with the data that you have logged on that specific app. Or if you are using a food diary, again, just cross-referencing in case you put a 1 instead of a 2 for the number of grams for the total weight of that food or drink. Number 3, nutrition labels tend to be up to 20% inaccurate. That's based on food quality, so lean versus fatty cuts, and it will vary. So just because it says what it says on the tin doesn't mean it's strictly true. Again, turn that product around, take a look at the ingredients list, take a look at the nutritional value table, and ensure it says or matches what's on the tin. Number 4, cooking methods will impact your calorie content. Now, the best way that I can show you this is if you grab some rice or potato, or perhaps if you're weighing food uncooked, well, once you then weigh it cooked, there's been a manipulation in terms of water either added or subtracted from that food in the cooking process. So I would always recommend that you weigh your food uncooked. It's the same if you were to use a microwave versus an air fryer, or if you were to cook using a pan. Let's say you are cooking a lovely juicy steak and you have rapeseed oil or perhaps olive oil, or you add a little bit of butter into the pan. Well, that's going to be an excess of maybe 100, 200, maybe even 300 calories on top of the steak that you've tracked. So that's just something to be aware of, whereas if you were to throw it in the air fryer, well, there's no added oils. Number 5, the restaurant meals often differ from menu listings, up to 100 calorie variations. So the restaurant's idea of a portion size may be completely different to yours. If you've been following the Eat Well guide or the portion plate, you'll know it recommends a quarter carbohydrate, which is represented as a palm size, a quarter protein also represented as a palm size, and then half vegetables represented as your 8 fingers. But the restaurant's idea of a portion size may be completely different to that. So if you've been following that for a good amount of time and you get to that restaurant, they may have significantly smaller portions or significantly bigger portions. When it comes to the restaurant's menu, they may have a rough estimate of how many calories are in a specific meal. Let's say it's 500 calories, but on that evening, when they do actually make that meal, they may have added oils, or they may have manipulated the cooking process to get that food out to you as fast as they possibly can. Dash of olive oil in the pan without even measuring it. Again, it's another 100 to 200 calories above what's been referenced on that calorie menu. And then finally, we want to minimize variation by standardizing prep and using stricter methods in contest prep. So we want to be using the same weighing scales, the same bowl, where you actually weigh your food. So is it on a counter in the kitchen? Is it on a table? We need to make sure that everything is standardized so you don't slip up. Or if you are using a barcode scanner, just reading the carbohydrate, the protein, and the fat, as well as the calories per 15 grams or per 100 grams, depending on the portion size that you're having. And then check the nutritional value table just to ensure that they are the numbers that do match that data log. So I guess next we need to discuss why tracking is important. Well, you track your finances every single month, right? What comes in, what goes out to be able to pay rent or a mortgage or bills or to save up for a birthday present. It's the same when it comes to your health and your fitness. Consistency is key, and accuracy is what's going to drive that result and achieve your specific goal. And we can actually look at tracking your nutrition in two categories. Number one, you can have a strict plan, or number two, you can have a macronutrient plan. But before we jump into that, the 4 golden rules that I will typically recommend when you do design your own nutrition plan is this. Number one, food weights are incredibly more important than food volumes. You should always weigh your food uncooked versus cooked. You should always standardize the cooking and weighing methods, so doing the same thing, repetition after repetition. And then finally, tracking micronutrients via MyFitnessPal, Chronometer, or if you do work with us on FITCOACH PRO, you will have the privilege of our own dietary log, which is very, very similar to MyFitnessPal or even Chronometer, where you can track those essential vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients. And one of the biggest mistakes that I do see in the fitness industry with these short-term programs or with these one-off nutrition plans is that, yes, they will get you a result and they will deliver a before and after transformation. But deep down, your health markers are actually skewed and you're in a worse position than what you were because you've not had those essential micronutrients that the body needs because you've been eating single ingredient foods and perhaps you haven't had any supplementation on that, or you haven't got the right quantity of those single ingredients foods, as well as your fruits and your vegetables, any antioxidants that you need in your body for specific health processes. So that's just something to consider when you are going on a diet plan. I don't like the word diet plan because it often refers to calorie restriction. You could go on a diet plan to create structure around muscle building. And actually, I'm going on a diet plan to have 5 meals per day with a similar structure, but they still contain the essential vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients that my body needs. So you can see that we've got 3 tracking examples. One of them is a strict meal tracking. The other is strict and flexibility. And then the third and final is high flexibility. Now, if we actually take a look at the strict meal plan. For meal 1, you've got 170 grams of chicken breast, cooked weight. You've got 200 grams of white rice, cooked weight. You've got 100 grams of pineapple, 7 grams of rapeseed oil, 150 grams of spinach, and green beans. There is no flexibility. It's exactly what it says on the tin. That is what you're going to be consuming. Whereas with strict and flexibility, you can see that for meal 1, you actually have the macronutrients there. 68 grams of protein, 119 grams of carbs, 15 grams of fat. And we got an A and a B option. So 170 grams of chicken breast, or if I fancy turkey, that's going to be cooked weight. 200 grams of white rice. I don't really fancy white rice tonight, so instead I'm going to have 350 grams of potato raw. 100 grams of pineapple, blueberries, or strawberries. Well, the strawberries, they are significantly greater in total volume, and I'm feeling a little bit peckish, so I'm going to have the 180 grams. I fancy a little bit of rapeseed oil tonight, so it's 7 grams instead of olive oil, and then 150 grams of spinach, green beans, or asparagus. And then finally, looking at high flexibility, we've got the macronutrients there, 68 grams of protein, 119 grams of carbs, and 15 grams of fat. But you're also provided with a food choice list. So the example that I've given are protein choices. So you can choose from chicken breast, turkey, shrimp, egg whites, whey protein. And as long as you do have the tools and the skill set to be able to track that food and match those macronutrients, then you should be Gucci. You should be able to hit those specific targets. Now, there are a couple of things to consider when you do transition between a strict and a flexible dietary plan. And it's all going to come down to a couple of things. Number one, are you on prep? So this could be prepping for a bodybuilding show, could be prepping for a competition, it could be prepping for a photo shoot, could be prepping for your wedding, for a birthday, for a holiday. Ultimately, I would recommend that you are on a strict dietary plan because you know exactly where you need to go and the time frame as well as the duration it's going to take to be able to get there. The off season, on the other hand, you might have a strict / flexible or high degree of flexibility just because you're consuming a considerable amount of food. Therefore, often you do need choice, because if I was to eat 350 grams of potato for multiple meals every single day, it does get quite boring, right? And it may even ruin your palate. So we do want a variety of blues, reds, yellows, greens, pinks, oranges, blacks, purples. Can't think of any more colors within your diet plan. I guess that goes for both strict and flexible, but it all comes down to what's your specific goal and the outcome. We're also going to look at client preference and response. So generally speaking, when I am dieting, I will always follow a strict meal plan just because it takes the thinking out of my decision making and it allows for consistency and adherence with no significant room for human error. Whereas if it's flexible, then I'm actually tuning into how my body feels and sort of my emotions around food. Can be problematic just because if you start to dig a little bit deeper when you're on prep and then you decide to binge eat, well, you may have a significant number of calories which could derail you so far from the track or from the goal that you want to achieve that there may be no comeback. So looking at strict planning, the first question that we need to ask ourselves is, can we allow meals to move around for the day? The answer is going to be yes. And this is why. Life gets in the way. You have work, you have family commitments, and let's say that you are training around 1 p.m. in the afternoon and you are having 5 meals per day. Well, the most important meals within those 5 meals are going to be your pre and your post-workout meal. So you actually have the opportunity to manipulate the 3 meals around your day, around your schedule, to make your pre and your post-workout meal work. So as an example, you may wake up at around 6 a.m. You may have your first meal around 7 a.m. You may then get to work and you have a light meal or a snack around 9 to 10 a.m. And then you are going to have your pre-workout meal as you head in for your training session at 1 p.m. So you've now had your pre-workout meal, that's meal 3. You've now had your post-workout meal, that's meal 4, let's say around 3 to 4 p.m. And then that leaves you with one final meal that you can have whenever you want throughout the day. And of course, as your schedule does change and you don't have the ability to train at 1 p.m., the most important thing is your pre and your post-workout meal. The next thing that we need to consider is macro tracking flexibility. So when you're in the off season, we want to allow for plus or minus 100 calories as a specific goal per day. So again, if I'm consuming 2,000 calories and I finished my day at 2,100, well, I'm in range. Big tick in my books, job done. Whereas if I've consumed 2,200 calories and I'm significantly above what I should be eating, well, guess what? You're not in that range. Therefore, the accuracy of that result is going to significantly reduce. It's the same when it comes to macronutrients as well. So we want to allow for a 10 gram plus or minus macro goal per day. So if I'm consuming 200 grams of protein and I've actually consumed 210 grams, well, I'm in that range. Okay, I've hit my protein for the day. But if I'm significantly below that, I've consumed roughly 160, 170 grams of protein, well, again, you're leaving results on the table. The next question we can ask ourselves is, can we allow 2 meals to be combined for that day? The answer is yes. And that could come down to a multitude of reasons. One of them could actually be time availability. So if you are trying to consume 5 meals per day, but you genuinely don't have the time, then you can then condense that down to 4 meals, or perhaps even further 3 meals. But just be aware that there's going to be larger portion sizes and it may take you a little bit longer to eat. So I generally recommend smaller portions more frequently, but if you do want to combine your meals, that's absolutely fine. Can you borrow 20% max calories from one day for an event? The answer is yes. So if you've got a birthday on the weekend, on the Friday, you borrow 20% of your calories. On the Saturday, you add that 20% onto your dietary intake for that day. You can also create recipes with macro targets, and this is applicable in the off season because it's going to allow for sustainability where there are no foods that feel off limits. We have hundreds, probably thousands of guides within our FITCOACH PRO one-to-one coaching program. So if you are someone that would like to grab our oat recipe bundle, I believe there's a few recipes in there which are very, very tasty and allow you to be flexible when it comes to your dietary plan. Just comment the word oats below this video and I'll send it across to you. Just because I know in the fitness industry, there's a big craze around overnight oats and what toppings do you have in your oats and sort of what flavor. And I believe in one of the guides, there's a lovely white Kinder Bueno chocolate oats. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think there is. Something along those lines. It's also important to find alternative recipes. So if you are someone that craves pizza, much like myself, although I do disagree that pineapple does not go on pizza, I love pepperoni. I love sort of in the UK, the Domino's, the Meteor. Oh, so good. But you're on a diet, homemade pizza or even homemade burgers, because that way you can enjoy that food without feeling guilty and it's significantly lower calories. But again, if you are in the off season, well, guess what? Have the burger or have that meal out. And then finally, low calorie options to save your macronutrients. So if you're someone that enjoys Ben & Jerry's and you're absolutely craving an ice cream, you're out on a nice summer's day walk, well, guess what? Halo Top has 320 calories per tub. And if your primary focus is to match or hit your calories or be within that range, and let's say you need to hit 1800 calories and you have roughly 1400 calories left, well, guess what? You can have the Halo Top ice cream without feeling guilty. And I think it's very normal for people to label foods as good or bad. There are no good or bad foods, but instead there are foods that are higher in quality and also lower in quality. But we also need to understand that we are human and we should enjoy things. Finally, we're going to look at tracking condiments, sauces. Now, under the FDA labeling, if a serving contains less than 5 calories, it can be labeled as 0 calories. So as an example, 1 tablespoon of mustard, that's going to be 5 calories. Or if you are using seasoning, garlic powder, 1 teaspoon is 10 calories. Cinnamon, 1 teaspoon is 6 calories. Pepper, 1 teaspoon is 5 calories. If we take a look at artificial sweeteners, 1 pack of sweet and low saccharin contains 0.7 grams of carbohydrate and about a 3 calorie contributor. If you're having 20 packs per day, That's 60 calories total. So as much as you might think that you've removed sugar from your diet, added sugar in your tea, in your coffee, and you're using something like Sweet and Low or stevia, it still contains calories and it still contains carbohydrates. So if you're popping quite a few sweeteners in there, it may even tip you over. But again, we have that range of plus or minus 100 calories. It really depends on how much you're going to drink. Sugar-free gum, 5 calories per stick. And then sugar alcohols, if you are someone that does enjoy the occasional alcoholic beverage. Sorbitol contains roughly 2.6 calories. Xylitol, 2.4 calories per gram. Malitol, 2.1 calories per gram. And that's for all of them per gram. One that I would recommend is erythritol. That's only 10% calorie contribution, and it has less GI problems. That being said, you may not necessarily get gassy or bloated having that type of sugary alcohol. If you enjoyed this type of content, make sure to drop a like and sub the channel. If you're looking to work with us on our one-to-one FITCOACH PRO program, all of the details are in the caption. If you want to grab that oat recipe bundle, just comment the word oats and I'll send it across to you. Until next time, goodbye.